single paycheck. How entrepreneurial do you think you have to be a franchisee, to be a franchisor? What's kind of the difference there? And, do you need, how much of a risk do you need to take to be in a franchising system, for example?
Wow, that was a mouthful and kind of a compounded question or sentence, and I'm not sure which one to ask first. But let me follow it up with this then. And
Yeah.
all things are possible, and that's biblical. So
Hmm.
whatever you want to do, you can do. Is there a step by step process within franchising that can help you there? Well,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I can, the entrepreneurial thing too. I remember when I was the area developer in the Charlotte region, and I was hiring sales guys. And the area developer needs a couple sales guys to go out and knock on doors, bring in the business for those unit franchisees and service. I have sales guys come to me and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I've got a business degree at UNC Charlotte. I took entrepreneurial studies at High Point University," and I'd come in, and then every one of them, after 4 weeks, they'd come back and say, "Holy cow, Mr. Dorsey, I learned more in 4 weeks working with you about real business than I did in 4 years at the entrepreneurial university or with the business degree that I received from UNC Charlotte." So
Yeah.
again, what you learn, again, we can even go deeper. Is leadership granted or learned? Is salesmanship granted or learned? I think it's all learned behaviors,
Mhm.
and you can do whatever you want to do.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And something it kind of reminds me of is I was at a networking event where Gary Brecka, the guy of 10X Health, was speaking, and he was kind of diving into how so many people have these anxious, these depressed feelings. And a lot of times we kind of like to blame it on genetics. We like to think other people in our family kind of have these feelings. And what he said is there's no gene in your body that like determines something like that. So it's really kind of your mindset, your environment, and kind of what you make of it. So that's kind of what you're reminding me of is how the X doesn't really determine Y. But I think that's really interesting in terms of, you being an area developer. I think that's something we should definitely dive into. So growing up, you start to become an entrepreneur in some ways. You're working really hard. How do you start to find out about the world of franchising? Can you dive us into the thought process of becoming an area developer?
Well, how far do you want to go back? Because I was working with a friendly competitor that I still am friends with today. And I
Mm,
saw an ad in the Charlotte Observer that said hiring sales guys,
yeah.
janitorial sales guy. And of course, as I was waiting tables and as I was bartending at these different restaurants, oh, you should be in sales. Right. Okay, great. I'm selling you right now. Exactly. Buy the steak instead of the soup. So everybody, oh, you should be in sales. You'd be a great sales guy. And
Mm,
or the one that everybody falls for. Oh, I could sell ice to an Eskimo. Well, then I said, well, then you shouldn't be in sales because Eskimos don't need ice. And if you're trying to sell ice to an Eskimo, then you're selling something to somebody that they don't need. And
mm,
that's not the basics of sales.
mm,
Salesmanship is, again, supporting people on their journey along the way and only whatever is best for them. And if it's not right for the franchisee, I won't sell them a franchise. If it's not right for a customer, then they're not right. It's never about the bottom line. It's what's right and what's wrong.
mm,
Going all back to that common sense too. So
mm,
long story short, I got a job knocking on doors for a competitor,
mm,
just like a paper out when I was 12 years old, or just like whatever else you want to use. I went out and knocked on doors and dropped off business cards and
mm,
said, "Hey, we want to clean your buildings." Within 1 year in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm going back good 20 years now too. So there wasn't the 2.5 million. There was probably less than 250,000 people in Charlotte at the time. We sold over $1 million worth of commercial cleaning contracts in 12-month period in Charlotte, North Carolina. And again, JD, it was just you hear the knocking door to door to door to door. There was no magical Google. There was no magical app. There was nothing magical. And guess what? I believe still today, especially in my industry, someone's got to be out there shaking hands and kissing babies. And because we are in the facility service industry, we got to go out there. And whether it's my industry or not, I hit advertising guys, go out and knock on doors. Computer guys, go knock on doors. Yeah, what else are you going to do? Sit in front of the computer and play on LinkedIn all day, or whatever other game you're playing? Because you got to make things happen. And as you make things happen, things begin to happen. The phone doesn't just ring off the hook because there's some magical smoke signal. Someone's got to go out there and create the phone to ring. And it's not Google, guys. It is not Google. It's that entrepreneur. It's that franchisee. And I don't think I'm answering all your questions either, but I remember early on, it wasn't a Jantize franchise. It was another brand. I don't think the brand is even around anymore. And I said, what got you into franchising? I mean, what made you buy this franchise? And the guy with disgruntled look on his face, who was an ex-engineer, and he said, if they told me I would have had to sell, I would have never bought this business. And I looked at him and I was like, well, you're the owner. Who else is going to sell? Who else is going to be the face? Who else is money? You think you're going to hire somebody and they're not going to just come and take in? I don't know, maybe. But again, when you're buying into the franchise, whether it's a Jantize America area developer or it's a Jiffy Lube, I mean, the successful Jiffy Lube guys, and I'm only using that because it's my example off the top of the head. The successful Jiffy Lube or successful franchisors, they're out. They're at their chamber meetings. They're knocking on doors. They're shaking bushes. They're handing out coupons to come get their oil change. They're giving out cookies. They're at the Halloween festivals. They're at the fairs. They're not just sitting in the pit waiting for the cars to drive in.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful. And a lot of people they kind of be like, social media, it's so powerful, and it is powerful. But the point of social media is to align it with what you're doing in the real world. And if you're not leaving your house, you're just playing video games, you're just on LinkedIn all day, you're not actually networking in person, you're not shaking hands, you're not introducing yourself to new people. Really the point of marketing is just the number of people that know you. So the more hands you shake, the more people you meet in person, really the more marketing you build for your business. So I think, like you kind of are hinting at, a lot of people kind of overcomplicate this concept. So I think that's really powerful. And we've mentioned area developer.
You mentioned social media. I call it social silliness. It's social silliness. And it was invented by, all the guys from the Charlotte Observer, the newspapers, the magazines, where nobody was using it anymore because they're online. We got to get something to get them to pay more subscriptions. We got to get something for advertising to go. It's all the advertising executives. JD, I hate to tell you, but sometimes I think again, Paul's thoughts, we should make that. I think half the stuff on LinkedIn is just made up BS anyways. Rah, rah, we sold another franchise. No, you didn't. You just met with somebody, right? Rah, rah, this is our 100th franchise. No, it's not. You just had a group meeting or something. Let's see the franchise agreement. Let's see these things. So there's a lot of rah, 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 look at me. I spoke at this next convention. No, you didn't. So there's a lot of, I don't want to be the naysayer either, but and I'm on LinkedIn mostly. I see some stuff on Facebook lately. I can tell you some Facebook horror stories early on too. But Jantize America has used 3 or 4 different outsourced companies, local and national, that we'll get you to the top. We'll make this work. It's gonna, $10, $20, $30,000 later, crickets, nothing. Well, again, you could hire somebody to go out to spread the news or preach to the choir and bring in more money that way. Even the pay-per-clicks and stuff too, it has to be very specific way that you're doing this SEM. So we call it SEM, the search engine marketing, and I guess social media fits under that SEM category too, because it's all just marketing, right?
No, that's really powerful. And it's kind of like this idea where everyone wants like this one option that'll like give them success, where, I'm on a bunch of calls with people that are new brokers and they're like, oh, I can't find leads. I can't find people interested in franchising. But, as Dennis Woolley alluded to on episode 1, 70% of people have considered business ownership. And we know like less than a percentage of people are business owners, let alone even consider franchising. So there's thousands, there's millions of people out there that are probably interested. They just don't know it yet.
Well, you got to do a little bit a lot. You got to do a little bit a lot. You got to do a little bit of the door to door. You got to do a little bit of the social media. You got to do a little bit of the telemarketing. You got to do a little bit. You can't do all day social media, all day knocking on doors, all day chamber meetings. No, the quote is do a little bit a lot, do a little bit a lot, and then it all comes together. But then you have to know where your marketing and your buyer source is, where it's coming from. Again, another great show for another day. Hey, I got a question. Who are these brokers who are trouble finding leads? Because if they're presenting the proper questions to their candidates, they'll have more leads and more sales than they could imagine. Kind of like, do you prefer the booth or would you rather have these nice tables? It's that rather have question.
Right.
Do you really want a smoothie or would you rather have a master franchise? What's a master franchise? Wow, let's go into the details of that.